So right now the world is waking up to the knowledge of who we are. And a lot of us know that we are co-creators of our reality. But what does that mean? How is it that, that we're somehow our beliefs and our ideas are creating this reality? Why does that even make sense? And it makes sense because our inner world and our outer world are not separate, right? We are not separate from the reality that we create. There is no outer world, right? We interpret it as outer, but there is no outer world. We are our soul made flesh, right? So we are our soul in the flesh, right? But what is the flesh? The flesh is but a manifestation of the soul, right? So it's not separate from the soul. It is the soul in a certain form. And that form is this system of reality, this 3D reality. We perceive the world as outside, as if there's something separate from the self, right? Something separate. We are manifestations of God, right? So we are the creation of God. So anything outside of us means there's something outside of the creation of God, right? But that's impossible. We perceive the outside world as outside because we perceive ourselves to be physical, right? We perceive ourselves to be 3D, but that's not true as well, right? We are the soul. We are the larger immortal part of ourselves, right? We are not the mortal body that we're living through in this point in eternity. We're not just that. So this reality only exists because we are the soul put into flesh, right? Nature is the soul put into flesh, right? And our connection and interaction with each other makes this life what it is. I remember when I was in school, I was working in a lab. I was a biology major and I was working in a lab, and my job was to water these plants every day, right? That was one of my jobs, was to water these plants when they're on this schedule, right? But I was talking to my professor and I was saying, if we speak to the plants, if we say nice things to the plants, then they'll grow faster. And of course, she's a scientist, so like she didn't believe me, and she's like, I don't believe in that. It kind of brushed me off, right? But I was the one who had the job of of growing these plants. So I took one of them, right? They were like stacked up on these racks, right? And there was this light that was growing them in this closet type place or whatever. And I would speak to one of them every time I came in, right? Tell it nice things. And lo and behold, that one grew exponentially greater than the other ones, right? And it was just for me, right? It was just something for me to understand, to believe, because I knew I believed it, but I just wanted to like kind of prove it to myself again. Like, yes, we can, like we can speak to these things and we have an effect over these things, And it worked because all of humanity, all of nature, we're connected, right? We have influence over each other. We have that ability to enhance one another, And that's a known experiment, and it works with all types of matter, right? It works with water. It works with all types of things, right? If you speak to one and speak life over it, it'll thrive. If you speak to another and you speak down on it, it'll distort, right? And then if you don't speak to the other one, it will just stay the same. And this is because we are the source of creation. So this is a place where our ideas come into form within this specific system, within the rules of this specific system. There are other systems of reality that have different rules to it, right? We are in a multiverse, and there are innumerable probabilities of reality, And when I was studying science, I absolutely loved it. But there were some things that I did notice, right? I noticed the connection of everything, right? But I also noticed that there are so many things that are left unsaid. Like there are no whys, like there are no answers to anything, We come up with all these technical terms and symbolism for just like, basic understanding of things, We look at mechanisms, never knowing the origin, never understanding why these things are happening. And I even had a professor tell me that, like, we don't answer the whys, right? We only look at what we see, you know what I'm saying? And I always thought it was flawed in that sense. But then when you think about it, it will always be flawed because if we don't know the self, if we're not understanding our inner reality, then we'll never understand our outer reality. We're looking at the effects of a internal manifestation, right? But we don't know ourselves internally, right? We don't know the grandness of who we are. We don't know that we're creating this reality. So since science is only studied within that separation, all we're looking at is the scaffolding of, or the fundamental patterns of the system that actual reality is being fleshed out towards, We're not really understanding what we're living in. Science and mathematics are just symbols for us to understand what we see, But all we're doing is perceiving what we've manifested. So we're not really understanding reality because the reality would be the source of that manifestation, which is us, I remember in school, my favorite subject was organic chemistry, right? And I just loved how, we're looking at the building blocks of reality, right? We're looking at how atoms, how they move to react with one another to form chemicals, to form larger substances or objects or whatever. And, it's cool, but it's like, but why? What is that greater reality? It's like, oh, it's polarity and this and this. But what is behind it? Like, what is causing that movement? Why are they, because it's electromagnetic field in it, but why? But how? You know what I'm saying? There's always a deeper why and a deeper how that I wanted to get to, and that I didn't. You know what I'm saying? And, people can argue, you were just an undergrad and, there's deeper parts to these subjects and stuff like that. I get it. And there are, but what we can't perceive through the study of just the physical senses, right, is the greater reality of that atom, right? The behavior of the atom and how it flickers in and out of existence. You know what I'm saying? And why? Where does it go? Like, how can it be in multiple places? How did particles within the atom be in multiple places at one time. Why? How is this reality even? How is this even happening? You know what I'm saying? What is causing this to happen? And we can't understand that through the five senses. We can't understand that by just seeing the effects of it. You know what I'm saying? By just perceiving an outer reality. You know, because we don't know the wholeness of that we are a larger part. We are this greater reality. You know what I'm saying? That we're connected to this reality. And as crazy as it sounds, this information is knowable. You know, the information is internal, and it seems wild only because we haven't explored the vastness of our internal reality. You know, if we truly understood that our external reality is not actually external, it's just our focus, our awareness, our consciousness, just focusing on this part of our reality, of our greater reality, right? Which is just a little sliver of who we actually are, right? If we turn that focus, some of that focus away from this physical reality, there's more to explore within our internal reality. There's more to explore as we take our focus from just this physical reality, you know? And we already know our consciousness can travel through meditation, you know? And taking our focus over it doesn't mean, you have to be in a state of meditation constantly, you know? It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with this reality. It doesn't mean any of that. It means that there's other things to explore. And there are mechanisms of consciousness transport, right? That we know of meditation. We know of astral projection. We know of ESP. We know of lucid dreaming. We know of tuning in intuitively. We know of the use of psychedelics, right? There's so many ways to explore the larger parts of ourselves. And when I say the larger parts of ourselves, I mean the larger parts of reality, because we are reality. Our inner self, our inner awareness is reality. And it's not opposed to the outer self, because there is no outer reality. There is no outer self. This outer reality that we're perceiving is our inner self. Again, we only perceive it as outer because we don't understand our connection to it. But as we understand our connection to who we are and the greater understanding of our being as entities of the whole that contain the whole, right? Then we understand that there's an infinite amount of life or reality probabilities to explore. We are the birthplace of creation, and our ideas literally create worlds. If we look at it objectively, it kind of makes sense. Like, there are only a few elements that make up everything on this entire planet, including us, you know? Our bodies are made up of like 4 basic elements that just recycle back into the earth, right? And this is a weird example, but it's like claymation, right? Using claymation, we create these worlds, right, where everything is created by the same source, right? Everything is created by clay. Yet the humans operating the characters, right, are the ones giving it life, are the ones giving it its story. That's like the same as us. We are like the characters being built from the clay, right? And then when the story is over, our bodies recycle back into the substances we were built out of to be formed into something new. Our physical self is a form our souls have chosen to take. And we have dominion over it as it plays its part in our ever-expanding existence.